Welcome back into Tapped Out here on the BetQL network. As always, produced by Jake Noacker, co-hosted by Brendan Tobin. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine. And let's welcome in a new friend of the show. He is the host of Mom's Basement MMA. He is Tyler Little. And Tyler, we finally have another pay-per-view, UFC 290, coming up next week. Alexander Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez at the top of the card. Are you surprised that Yair is such a big underdog? Right now at BetMGM, I'm looking at him at plus 330.
Well, first and foremost, Sean, thanks for having me. BT, thanks for letting me join you folks this evening. Always appreciative to have opportunities like this to talk MMA with like-minded folks. To answer the question, am I surprised? No, not really. No disrespect to Yair, a fantastic talent, a phenom. I understand why people are so excited about him. Any other featherweight contender, I would expect the odds to be a little bit different, but he's arguably going up against, in my opinion, the best pound for pound fighter in the UFC right now. So am I surprised by the Vegas having the odds a certain way slanted toward Volk? No, not really, but could it be a close fight? It certainly could.
If Yair was going to get it done, Tyler, what does he got to do? What are the paths for him to beat Alexander Volkanovski?
Man, that's such a really difficult question because not a lot of men have had success doing that. I would say he's got to not psych himself out. He's got to do what makes him a dynamic fighter. Keep Volkanovski guessing and be patient, not get caught. I feel a lot of times people will get a little bit lulled into Alexander Volkanovski's game of deadly striking. And that's certainly one thing you don't want to do. I would mix it up. I would threaten that level change. I would attack his legs and really try to keep Volkanovski guessing for the entire 25-minute duration. He does that. There's certainly a possibility he could get it done.
We saw last week Ilia Topuria dominate Josh Emmett. Do you feel like he is, if anybody's got a shot, do you feel like he can get it done against Alexander Volkanovski, or is it just that's going to be too big a step up if he gets that championship level?
This is a question I have been like battling in my brain over the past few days. He's such a dynamic talent. He is so dangerous. I understand why people are so high on this guy. And my reaction to that is, who else if not him? It's got to be. If it's not him, then I really can't think of any other threat beyond Topuria. I think Topuria is so dangerous with the striking. I think he's smart. I think he just has like a certain X factor about him that makes him a dangerous guy, in my opinion. And if I had to put money on an outcome of a fight between Topuria and Volkanovski, I would be today. My answer would probably be Topuria.
We're talking with the host of Mom's Basement MMA here on Tapped Out. He is Tyler Little on the BetQL network. Tyler, also on that card, UFC 290, another underdog that I'm really looking at hard, man. Dricus Du Plessis. He's been a cash cow for me at 3-1 versus friend of the show, Robert Whitaker's joined us a couple of times at minus 400. I think Robert Whitaker's the better fighter, and I understand why he's such a big underdog. But man, Du Plessis looked good now for a long time. And if you just tell me it's a cage fight and styles make fights, I think I'm going to play the 3-1 dog.
I completely understand why you would. Listen, from a betting perspective, it's not a terrible move. He has an X factor about him. He's completely dynamic and powerful. When I think of Dricus Du Plessis, I think of somebody who is a complete cannon of a fighter. It is one shot is all it will take. And to your point, Sean, it doesn't have to be a clean shot. He can overwhelm you with brute force violence. That's what makes him such a dangerous guy to have to contend with. My biggest concern about him is his gas tank. Robert Whitaker, you're talking about a guy who's gone the 25-minute distance time and time again. He will dart in and out of the pocket. And there are a lot of things about Robert Whitaker, having been battle tested against some of the best fighters on the planet. He's going to have his work cut out for him. That's all I can say. Dricus Du Plessis, that cardio better be there for him to have that chance. I have a hard time believing that Robert Whitaker is going to get caught early in the first round. Not to say it's not impossible. To your point, it is a cage fight. But the more often when I see that fight play out in my head, the longer that fight goes, the better off Robert Whitaker is going to be.
So if he gets the job done, any path to him fighting Izzy again? I mean, it's such a tough scenario because you have 2 losses against the champ. We kind of know it, but like, I don't know what else there is for him to do. He's kind of in that Max Holloway zone at middleweight. So is there anything Robert Whitaker could do against Dricus that would say, okay, he deserves the title shot again? Or do you feel like he's just in no man's land right now until there is a new guy on top at 185?
I do kind of feel he's in a no man's land right now. Everyone expects him to beat somebody like Dricus du Plessis. If he does that, he maintains his position in my mind. Is that enough to warrant a rematch, a third roll with Izzy? Probably not. I think he's going to have to do something a little bit more impressive. I think it's going to take knocking off a Khamzat Chimaev in order to justify getting an 85 title shot at this time. The problem with that, though, is what exactly is going on with Khamzat Chimaev. Not exactly been the most active guy. He's going on the better part of a year of inactivity. That's the biggest question mark.
What do you make of all that, Tyler? Like, what do you think is going on there with Khamzat? Like, it's been like, this is a guy who made his fame off of fighting it's a lot of fights in a short amount of time. Yeah, I get it. You raise up on fame, but then all of a sudden it's like, we don't know. We don't know what weight class he's fighting at. We don't know when he's going to fight. Maybe some Usman buzz out there, then it goes away. Like, what is your best guess as to what's next for Khamzat?
I think first and foremost, we have to remember he didn't do himself any favors about that Nate Diaz matchup a little while back. The UFC really had to acquiesce and accommodate his unwillingness to go to welterweight. That's it. When we're talking about Nate Diaz in the UFC, that sounds like, an eon ago, but it wasn't that long ago where he was a contender in the UFC and those two were slated to compete with one another. That was a botched weight cut that really pissed off the boss. And now we are probably 99.9% sure we can assume that Khamzat Chimaev will be competing in that middleweight division. With that being said, the impact, the departure of Darren Till and his health, those two are close. Those two got a lot of time in with each other. If Darren Till isn't healthy and isn't able to give him looks in the training room, does that affect his game plan? It very well could be. And I think that's one of the stories that nobody's really talking about with the departure of a Darren Till, somebody that Khamzat really spent a lot of time with. Is that impacting his preparations? Does that make him less confident? It very well could. And that could be a partial reason why we aren't seeing a Khamzat Chimaev in action unless there's, some sort of injury that's happened that we just don't know about.
It's not just Khamzat, though, guys. It's like, where have you been, Kamaru Usman? What's up with Paddy Pimblett? What's up with the Colby fight versus Leon? Like, it's been very, I don't know if auspicious or inauspicious. I don't even know if that's the right word, but it's been kind of weird is what I'm trying to say, where to BT's point, these guys were so active and at least we heard about them. And then all of a sudden it's like, what's going on? Speaking of a guy that we have heard a lot about, but don't know if he's actually going to fight, Conor McGregor, on tough, not the best coach in the world. We're seeing that. Do you think we're going to actually get this fight with Michael Chandler?
Is it going to happen in 2023? If you believe what you read, the answer to that's pretty obvious. It's not going to happen because of USADA sampling deadlines. He missed that cutoff. If we are going to see it, it is more than likely going to be in, the first quarter of 2024. I think that's somewhat reasonable. I think the UFC pinned themselves in a really awkward corner with that. Tough has not transpired in what they had hoped. The ratings certainly aren't there. I think that's fair. The latest legal issues that McGregor is facing with that whole NBA situation, that's not a good look either. And the UFC is really in an awkward position. Number one, they put out a lightning rod that hasn't delivered on the ratings that they had wanted. There's additional legal issues that they're having to potentially contend with. And now he missed the USADA sampling period. So if anything, if that fight happens, it's probably going to happen in 2024. Chandler's probably thinking in the back of his mind that it was something that was certainly a possibility, but it's too big of a money fight. I don't expect Chandler walking away for a different fight. He wants that McGregor fight. He wants that McGregor payday, and I think he'll get it in 2024.
What do you think they think of Conor McGregor? And by they, I mean the UFC. Like, because me and BT talk about this all the time, and me and Jake were talking about this actually earlier today off air, where I had to take down my Conor McGregor picture, and that thing's dope, but it's like, I don't like him anymore. He's not fun. He's not cool. He's just a shadow of what he used to be. I can't even really look at it without feeling kind of cheesy myself. Is the UFC just squeezing the last of the juice they can get out of it? Because what do they think was going to happen with Tough? Like, what do they think the interest still is with Conor McGregor?
What a fantastic question. Past results. We have all been in the MMA media space for long enough to remember what those McGregor numbers looked like.
He was the man. He was the definition of cool.
And we all rode that wave. When we're talking about a Conor McGregor fight in 2020, 2021, 2022, we all noticed that pump out on our numbers as well. He's such a megastar based off of what he was able to do in the past, based off of those Nate Diaz fights, based off of those Jose Aldo fights. You know, he is one of the most iconic MMA fighters of all time, and he is able to ride that reputation out. To your point, though, the results just have not been there lately, and it certainly feels like a desperate cash grab at this point. Do I consider him to be a bona fide lightweight contender? No. A 170-pound contender? Put Kamaru Usman in the ring with Conor McGregor and watch what would happen. It would not go Mac's way at all. I think Kamaru Usman would completely dominate Conor McGregor, and it would look very similar to a bigger Habib on top of him for 15 to 25 minutes.
Tyler, the one of the big news stories this week, we got word Henry Cejudo out of his fight with Chito Vera, hurts his shoulder. One, your reaction, just the injury. Two, like with his, path of his career just coming back after a long layoff, how worried are you that this could be a big deterrent for Henry, that, a guy who's just coming off of basically a long, retirement is now dealing with a serious injury and in a very, very tough weight class?
It's very concerning just based off of age and mileage. I mean, father time isn't friendly, and a shoulder injury, anyone who's ever had a shoulder injury will tell you, you heard it once, you're never 100% after that. Now, fortunately, he's got the best doctors, he's got the best treatment paths available to him. But, is Henry Cejudo going to get back? Is he going to look the same? We're not really going to know that until he gets that opportunity. But it's just a very unfortunate situation for him. He's coming off a split decision loss against the champion Aljamain Sterling, and he got a really favorable matchup in Chito Vera, in my opinion. I think you put a healthy Henry Cejudo up against Chito Vera, especially in a 15-minute fight, that's a big win over a big name. I would bet my mortgage that Henry Cejudo is going to walk away the winner in a potential matchup between those two.
Tyler Little, host of Mom's Basement MMA, joining us here on the BetQL network. All right, last one, then we'll get you out of here. We do actually have a fight tonight. Sean Strickland, the favorite, taking on Magomedov. Strickland minus 150, Magomedov plus 125. Which way should we play it?
Man, I can't help but roll that dice a little bit and look at Abus a little bit. This is a fight that a lot of people aren't giving him an opportunity, and it's because of name recognition, or in this case, lack thereof. He is a Dagestani fighter who's spent most of his time competing overseas. If you don't watch PFL, if you don't watch KSW, you probably have no idea how good this guy is. He put a beating on Sada Busi, the PFL welterweight champion, not that long ago. He's up a weight class. He's a dynamic striker. He can do all sorts of things really, really well. The other thing I like going into this fight for Abus's side is people are telling him for a UFC fight night card, you're not a big enough name to headline this. Who the heck are you? We don't want anything to do with you. And when you talk about a competitor of this caliber who it has a 25-4 record, they're not used to hearing stuff like that. I have to believe that's going to be a huge motivating factor for him. And I'm going to take my chances with the dog and Magomedov.
Great stuff. You talked me into it. I think I'm going to play the underdog Magomedov at plus 125. And Sean Strickland also has the name recognition because the dude fights like every other week. So I think at this point, my grandma knows who he is. He's Tyler Little, host of Mom's Basement MMA, joining us here on Tapped Out. We'll bring you on soon. Again, man, we really appreciate your time.
I appreciate you gents having me. Have a great rest of your evening and enjoy the fights this weekend.